Um, Seth's doing his in the spring with Mike Summers up in too.
All right.
Sandy bought my practice, and she still occasionally. She called me 2 days ago. The temple secretary, when I was president of the temple, like 15 years ago, started as a patient this week. You never know.
Crazy. You never know where the seeds come out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Dr. Sharon Gorman on, but before we make an introduction, I want to take you just a couple of seconds and have a moment of silence for Dr. Guy Riekman. He was a
Really?
big contributor to this profession, and we're going to miss his spirit. Okay,
Really?
this
His
is
son?
yeah,
Wow.
Dr. Riekman died this morning. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, I'll be quiet. Thanks. Amazing.
All right, we have Dr. Sharon Gorman on. She is a force for chiropractic. Uh, Practices down in Georgia now after doing multiple practices in Pennsylvania. Uh, just had her own big focus thing down there, which I heard a lot of good stuff about. She's the MC at New Beginnings now because of Bill Henry's passing. Uh, Sharon, I could go on for a while, but welcome to the Band of Brothers.
Thank you. Please, John, just give me an idea. How long should I speak?
However long an eight tells you to speak.
Well, don't say that because
We've been on the phone half an hour. We've been on the phone an hour. So until you're done.
okay. Well, I would love to speak for a while and then kind of leave, open it up. Can we do that? And if anyone has
Absolutely, absolutely, it's free
good,
form.
good. That would be awesome. I um I'm glad you started out with talking about Guy because he's a big part of my story and taught me so much in chiropractic. He kind of elevated the profession in a way. I've been thinking about this a long time, and those of you that know, yeah, I'll give you a little history. I grew up in New Jersey, and my uncle was a what you say, it was a D chiropractor back then. He was around when they were forming Life University, and so that I kind of grew up with that, but actually like a box on the wall mentality, like and a great like I learned like so much of my chiropractic at Wo Hop and Sam Wo's in Chinatown, and that feeling like chiropractic was going to live or survive, live or die by each of our orientations that week. How good we delivered the goods and how well we passed the message on, and I still try to recall that often. And I grew up again. I could talk about it for too long, but Red video, Reel to Reel, was the first chiropractic video I saw. My uncle showed us because he didn't want to do an orientation. When he went from being a symptom chiropractor to above down inside out chiropractor, he never really done any public speaking, so he bought a Reel to Reel and he would show Reggie's video, and so that was my first exposure. But later on, watching Reggie's videos with Peter Graves and all that, really, I think, we kind of started out like very humble beginnings as chiropractic, but as time has gone on through, insurance and everything else, the evolution of seeing ourselves and our value has shifted. And I think that Guy brought some class to the profession in a way and showed us that the adjustment was not just worth the coins at the bottom of their pockets, but that it was something that would have to be valued if the profession was sustainable. And at the beginning, that was kind of frowned on. Like, I remember I started with a co-op fee, and it was like, there's no way. Here's my speech. Here's my old ROF. There's no way you could possibly afford chiropractic care because of it's so valuable. So what we do, because we want to see you and your whole family, is let's figure out what you could afford. And so it was about, and like a lot of you, we figured out over the years that we started, we were paying for their Disney vacations. In other words, chiropractic, they pay for chiropractic after everything else. And it was actually easier to practice when, insurance was paying for most of it and they just had to, throw us a few shekels. there was a transition that happened in myself and a lot of the profession where we had to show our value. We had to front end almost, I hate to use the word sell, and some people proudly use the word sell, but we had to show them that this was worth something, this was worth paying for, that there was value in chiropractic. And I remember when I took a seminar and learned how to do that when I came out of networks with a lot of the insurance companies. And actually, I bought a Titron and I did scans and I really worked on explaining what chiropractic was. And what I found, when I probably started my practice was 80%, insurance in the Poconos at one point in the 80s, the Mercedes 80s, to now where I bet you 10% of my practice is insurance. What I find is that the people value the care more and I have had to get better at having them understand what it is that I do. Before it was an innate connection and that was enough. But nowadays with all the technology and how the world has changed, they question what you tell them more often. But truly, it's that innate connection that keeps them in the office. It's that something special they feel when they walk through, and it has to even come through even brighter because there's so much. They walk around with the cell phone. I remember in the early days, if they walked in and my waiting room was full, they would walk out because they'd be like, "Oh, this is going to take a while." Now, if I tell them, if they're going to have to wait, they're like, "No problem." And they zone out into their phone. How do we make an argument or how do we create a value that they come not only themselves but with their family? And I think it used to be, again, easier to get them to bring the family because, oh, what the heck, it's free or next to free. But how do you create that value? Well, it starts with having that value yourself. And living the model that you want them to live. You have to be that example and sometimes get out of your comfort zone. I talk a lot more in the office than I used to. Maybe because I don't see as many patients, but I definitely want people to get what it is that I do because I know that if they don't get it, they might end up in the surgeon's office. They might end up dying prematurely. It's not a joke. To them, it might be a joke. Oh, yeah, get rid of this pain. And if it's cheaper to take an epidural, I'll do that rather than chiropractic. I've had people leave because they're like, oh, well, they're looking for a cheaper solution. But that's not who we are looking for. We are looking to attract people that are attracted to what it is that we do. And we become more attractive when we realize the power of the adjustment and the power of what makes us different. So many chiropractors want to make chiropractic a treatment for another symptom. This is so much bigger than that. When we put our hands on people, we're turning on life in them. We're helping their body express the God-given ability to heal and to be alive. But they don't get that unless we tell them. And I like you, and I see my fellow gray-haired people on the phone. How many thousands of times do we have to tell them? How many new patients do we have to go through that only come in? I used to say this joke, and I don't think it's politically correct anymore, but I like it. I used to say, I might be white and flaky, but I ain't no aspirin. And it's true. They want to turn this into another therapy for another symptom. How small is that? Let's not make chiropractic small. I have to put my ass in the line. And my ego, when somebody says I still get it. My real doctor said I have to put my ego aside, and my desire to serve and change lives has to be so much greater than all of that noise. I used to say, and I'll say it again, when you're on fire, they'll come and watch you burn. We've got to be careful. And do you remember Dr. Sid said, don't watch the news. Don't let all that out. And it's so easy to let it in. My phone is never outside of the reach of my hand except in the office. Don't let it all in. Don't let the negativity in. Don't, if you let too much of it in, you become common. We need to be extraordinary. We need to be role models. Because what we say, I started a new patient, and she came in to see her x-rays. Her husband's a patient, and I was able to give her some hope. Now that's something that makes us unique too. That we bring hope to people. When I show them their x-rays, even if the x-ray looks bad, I say, you see, this part looks bad and this part looks good, and we can get, you still are alive. I use that analogy how, if your tires are out of, we should write books with some of these analogies we use over the years. But if your car's out of alignment, your tires wear on the inside, the outside. Well, look at how your tires are wearing. I'll say to them, there's a young kid. I said, at 30 years old, I said, how are you going to feel when you're my age if you don't take care of this now? And not only that, what about your kids that you're giving antibiotics to and you're not allowing their bodies to be challenged and their immune system to develop? I just keep on talking. I just keep on telling them. Because I am really clear that, I'm more than halfway done with my life. And if I'm going to get this message out, I just got to keep on going. I got to keep on sharing it. I got to dig deep some days. But it's worth it. It's all worth it. And I mentioned this at the last New Beginnings I was at, and something that's really important is that, I hear people in New York call me all the time looking for associates, and then they complain that it's hard to get associates. It's because you're not sending enough people to school. So they're not coming back to New York. I ask every single one of my patients if they ever considered being a chiropractor. I don't care if they're 70 years old. They laugh, and then they tell me about their grandson who doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. And I say, bring him in and let me talk to him. I remember years ago when I went on the board at Life, and we went from 3,000 students to 300 students, and all the board members became the recruiters. And I said, I at the time I was doing dinner with the doc once a week. And I said, well, once a month, the first dinner for the doc of the month is actually going to be for prospective students. And I started going to the high schools and inviting these kids to the dinners. And I asked every patient, and I said, okay, my volume will drop a little bit, but I'm going to fill some of these seats at Life University. And the craziest thing happened. My practice grew. You knew I was going to say that, right? Because it's impossible to outgive the giver. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible to put it out there and give of yourself and give that energy without it comes back. You can't help it. And there's some part of us that always wants to make sure we want to all get our part. But the truth is, and what Sid taught us is you got to give for the sake of giving. And when you give, that's when it feels good. I mean, it feels good when you get the paycheck or when you look at your account at night, but it feels a hell of a lot better when you put your hands on. I have about 4 pregnant women in my practice now, and I think they were all patients that happened to get pregnant. I don't think I recruited any, but every one of them has said this to me without me saying anything. This is how I know I'm doing. There's certain ways you're doing something right. And the 4th one said it today because she's only a few months pregnant. She said, unsolicited, she said, I can't wait till I give birth so I can bring my baby in so you can check my baby. Awesome. Because, it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt that I have a 2-month-old behind the front desk. And my daughter, all she talks about is how great chiropractic is. And, because she's so excited that she is like the healthiest kid of all her friends. And now all her friends are starting to come into the office because there's something special. If you look at a chiropractor's, thank God, because those of you that have grandchildren or grandchildren know that you have very little control. They're going to do what they're going to do, right? None of my kids have been vaccinated, and none of my grandkids have been vaccinated. And you could look in their eyes, and there's, especially this little guy, this 2-month-old, he's like alive and awake. like he looks older than he is. His eyes focus, and he's sucking life in. And my daughter passes him around in the waiting room, and the patients who are all like, came out of the COVID generation or something, like, oh no, I had a cold last year, or you mean I could hold your baby without a mask? And she's like, please do, because we need to build this kid's immune system if he's going to live in the waiting room for another for a while. His immune system needs to be challenged. But most people are so fear-based. Your patients are so scared. I used to hug every patient, and I don't hug everyone anymore because I would freak them out. Like people are, they have like a bubble around them. They think that the world is going to, like that the viruses are going to jump up on top of them and kill them. And then you got us. You see, if we can stay together as a tribe, if we can stay on these damn Zoom calls, and we can go to New Beginnings or D or Mile High, wherever you go to get fed, because you are the leader in your office. I remember I once heard somebody speaking at one of the seminars, like, oh, my CAs believe in chiropractic. They love it. They believe in it more than I do. And I thought, no, they don't. If they did, they'd go find a better leader than you. You are the leader. You are the one. You are the one that they're going to call in the middle of the night when their kid has a fever. It's all hugs and love and, happiness in my office. But the bottom line, the anchor is me. And the passion I have for chiropractic, the more passionate I am for chiropractic, the more people come to be helped by me. And what I've come to find out is that I just want to help people. I truly, I used to interview, I've had over 100 associates in the Poconos when I had multiple offices for 30 some odd years. And I used to interview associates, and they'd always go, I want to help people. And I'm like, yes, so do I. Tell me how do you feel about subluxations? Does that piss you off? That people live with them until they can't anymore? But when you get in your 60s and you show up to work, and there's a line of people that want to be helped, and you have an answer that most people don't have, and you have these, the hands, the activator, whatever instrument you use, and you could turn life on them. I have a lot of friends that are retiring, and they're happy about it. I'm like, that sounds like a long time out. I want more of this. I want more life. I want more new patients. I want more people that need life turn on in them, because I give for the sake of giving. I didn't make this stuff up, don't worry. And I love for the sake of loving. I feel so good when I love. When I look at one of my grandsons, or when my dog comes to the office, I look at my dog, man, it just melts my heart. And that's how I want to feel when I look at my patients, even the ones that are jerks. You guys have any jerks? I got some jerks. Their parents must have beaten them. I don't know, but I love them. See, I learned this from my kids. You got to find something to love about every one of them. I have a patient. I live near a nice neighborhood. It's a nice flat neighborhood, and I get a lot of the patients out of this neighborhood that end up being patients. And this one guy, I think he pays, most of my patients pay by the year, but I think he pays 12 visits at a time. And he'll come in once a week for about 12 weeks. He walks by my office every day with the dog, and he waves, at his storefront. And then he uses up his 12 visits, and then he usually waits a month or two. I don't know what he's waiting for, because the guy is loaded. It's a very wealthy neighborhood. And he doesn't buy 12 more visits. I think he waits to see how long he can go before he buys the next set. And then he'll come in 12 visits at a time. Well, when I see him all the time, and he's not coming in, he's in between his 12 visits, there's part of me that doesn't want to love him. Like, I kind of want to backhand him, like, how stupid can you be? My brother was a chiropractor before he passed, and he used to say, Your next symptom could be your last. I had a guy, and I tell the story at New Beginnings all the time because it amazes me. And the guy still comes to the office in Pennsylvania. He came to me as in junior high school, in college, through his marriage, through his, having kids. And he called up one day and he said he's not coming back in. I'm like, what'd I do? What's wrong? He goes, we're not going to get adjusted for a while and see. I mean, these people have impeccable health. I'm going to see what happens. Well, you can see what happens. I said, so I said, me, I just got to say, I said, well, whatever happens, I hope it happens to you and not your kids. Now, we have trouble saying that because we live in a world where everybody's trying to save money and only go to doctors that are on their plans and only use whatever, their HSA pays for. Don't buy into that crap. You can't listen to that. This is so much bigger than that. And I start new patients sometimes that are older than me or younger than me, and I can't believe how old they are. And I tell patients I'm in practice almost 42 years, and I'll tell them that I get adjusted every week, and they're like, "You're kidding?" And I'll say, "Well, when I was pregnant, I got adjusted twice a week, but now I'm down to once a week, and that's what I do because I'm worth it." You talk about self-care. Chiropractic is the ultimate self-care, and if they knew. I know that you're going to go, oh, I've heard that before, but if they knew what we knew, they would do what we do. Not if they heard it or, like we told them once or twice, but they see who they are. I did a report of findings on a year late. Like I said, I do mostly yearlies. And this woman, about 30 years, she does waxing, wax on, wax off. She does waxing, and she was getting towards the end of her year, and she said, can I come every other week and let's see how my body does? I said, okay. So she did that, and then her year was over, took an extra whatever, however many weeks to be over. And I said, I showed her everything, and I showed her how her x-rays, and I do a Titron, I do the computerized posture, and I do the gonia, I do all that stuff that they need to see. And then I said, well, let's talk about frequency. She goes, no. She goes, you're not going to do this to me. I need every week. I need a 52. I tried it. That didn't work. I tried it. I'm not going to do that. I said, well, Kelly, I wouldn't do it either. I wouldn't do it either. I wouldn't go more than a week without getting my spine checked. How long do I want to be subluxated? I get to my daughter's house. My daughter lives about an hour away. And there's a portable table in her house, and the little boys, they set it up and then they fight to get on it and they pull each other off, and it's a whole big game. But it's not a big game. If we don't teach this to our children, who are going to, if we don't teach this passionately with our patients, the reality of letting, I remember I had to tell this other story because it was really funny, but when COVID came out and, they were starting to do the lockdown, my daughter goes to me, she goes, you remember when I was a kid and the neighbors had chicken pox? I go, yeah. And you made us go play with the kids with chicken pox so we'd get chicken pox? I go, yeah. She goes, well, our patient Dan, he works for Delta Airlines and he's got COVID. You want us to go over? You have to have certainty. I believe in kin of hers. I got to knock wood, but I haven't had COVID, and I've adjusted hundreds of people with COVID from the very start. Because you know what, my daughter will tell people when they say, "Oh no, I could touch your baby." She was back to work in 2 weeks. She would say to them, "Oh, don't worry, he has an immune system." Now, I don't think the little guy has ever had a back pain, but this is about your life. And just like when I used to go to WoHop with Bob Satilli and Bob Tarantino and Dick Santo, and they would always fight. I didn't know why they were fight. I was a kid. I was like everyone's babysitter, and but I would go with them, and they would always be like like who the straighter of the straight was a thing back then, right? I guess. But they ate, they drank, they slept, they loved chiropractic. My mother's sister was my Uncle Howard, and my mother, if she was having a party, she would monitor whether she'd invite them or not because she knew it would turn into a lay lecture. Like that's all my uncle could do. Like if you got around him, he was going to talk about chiropractic. Every time I would get on a line for to pick up my kids from preschool, I had to pick them up. The person on the right of me and the left of me were going to tell me about their kids' sinuses because they knew I was a chiropractor, and other people talked to me about their kids' asthma and their right. You have to become that person that they know that they can talk to. Their life, and your life is worth it because the more you have that desire and that capacity to serve, the more people are going to come and be served by you. So love for the sake of loving. So when I love you, it feels cool for you, but it feels really cool for me because I feel that emotion. I feel love. Just like when you watch politics and you hate this guy or hate that guy, you're feeling hate. You're living in hate. You're wasting your days. You're wasting your minutes. If you're not living your passion, if you're not living your purpose, my purpose is to turn on life in people and teach them why it's worth having their life turned on for them and their family for their lifetime. If you woke me up in the middle of the night, I am chiropractic. I love this stuff. God gave me a way to serve him by serving man through this principle. There's lots of ways to serve people. There's lots of people serving other people. But we have something special. We have something unique. Love for the sake of loving, serve for the sake of serving, and give for the sake of giving, because you can't give it all away. So if I could, John, stop there and see if anybody wants me to talk about anything particular or
You
anyone
know
have any.
what? You've motivated me. I want to share a couple of things because with guys passing, I was going through some old notes about from some of the guys that have already passed, and some of the things that you talked about. Joe D'Onofrio, the orientation is the most important thing I do. Doing an orientation, I haven't done one in years. I stopped it with COVID. I brought it back. I would never practice without an orientation again. Joe Strauss, tell him, tell him, tell him, tell him, tell him, and then tell him again. We have to never stop telling the story. And then Joe Accurso, I hadn't seen this one in a while. Either what we do is really valuable and subluxation is real and it affects every part of a person's existence, or we're a fraud. We have to take what we do serious because we cannot expect a patient to take themselves serious if we don't take what we do serious. So thank you for bringing all that back to my mind.
You.
Anybody else have any questions about what Sharon was sharing about? You wanted to expand on anything?
Well, I can go ahead, Leo.
I was just going to say thank you, Sharon, for all the stuff you shared tonight. And I think you're just such a bright light in chiropractic. And you for the many years that I've known you since the first time we went to Peak together, it's just amazing to me how you supported myself and my journey through chiropractic. And through the years, you've always been there. You're awesome. I really appreciate you.
Love you, Leo. I love you, Leo.
You're
Thanks.
awesome.
Yeah, I was just going to share. It's been about a year ago. Sharon came and spoke at a gathering we had out in Pennsylvania with the Chiropractic Fellowship, and I needed to hear that again about the news. I don't get overwhelmed with it, and I don't get really attached to it. But I think especially the news within our profession, you can't let it take your joy. You have to read it. You need to be informed. You got to know what's going on state to state, nationally, internationally to some degree. But the minute you take it on and let it burden you and take your joy away, your practice fades, your patients aren't getting all of you. And it's just so important to keep that joy. And just hearing you say that again brought all that back to me from last March. I appreciate it. You know, I love you and look forward to the next time I give you a hug.
Thanks.
Jeff, I want to expand on something Sharon said just to remind people. The phones that reach except in the office. And in the office is where you have to get rid of all distractions. So if you have your phone in your pocket in the office, put it in another room someplace.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember they used to have those chiropractic magazines? You know, and they don't have them very much, but like chiropractic economics or, you know, the different ones. And you used to look through them. And I remember looking through them and it had so little chiropractic, you know, and they were, you know, they were selling different kind of machines and things like that. And even as a student, I learned this from my uncle. I used to go through the pages really fast and go blah, 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 blah. Like, give me the chiropractic, give me the juicy stuff. All that other stuff is for other, you know, physical therapists, for medical everybody can do, you know, sycophants say, why do we pick everybody else's garbage, you know? Stick with what we have, which is so beautiful. But even back then, it's not like, you know, it's like we glorify the past. You know, back then it was all passive physical therapy. Everybody did right? Everyone was treating symptoms, and the more codes they had, the more the insurance paid them. It's just a different day. But the healing comes from inside, and our success comes from inside out. And we have to guard that because chiropractic might be the product that we sell, but we are the salesman, and we can't sell it if there's nothing left. If they can't see our fire burn, they can't attach to our fire. They can't come and light their fire to our fire.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Brian, Ronnie, Rick.
Yeah. Sharon, I just wanted to say thank you for the talk. I can always feel the love in your talks, the love for chiropractic, the love for your family, the love for your patients. I love listening to another chiropractor and the sayings that the little stuff that they have, because everybody has their own, but you run out of them and they get stale. And so I wrote down, you know, how are you going to feel at my age if you don't take care of it now? I may be white and flaky, but I ain't no aspirin. Your next symptom could be your last. Everybody in my practice is going to get hit with those three.
Russian roulette. Next symptom could be your last. Here's another one that I came up with lately is, and I'm sure other people have said it, you know, but I work on the body you take to the gym, not the drugstore.
Nice.
That's
Love it.
Great.
Health conscious area. And I'm like, if you went to the gym once a month, would you expect any results? You know, because they all want to tell me what they're going to do because there's a joint corner, and you know, I'm like, I'm in Chiroland, you know, so they all think they know. You know, their ex-husband was a chiropractor, their kid's school teacher was a chiropractor. Their last chiropractor put a sign on the door, went back to Michigan. You know, like it, you know, so it's a different environment, but they could tell the difference.
Yeah,
Dave,
my
Joe,
whiteboard
Ronnie,
has
anybody else?
something similar to that where it says better to be the oldest person at the gym than the youngest person at the nursing home.
No.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for sharing everything you do. We totally appreciate all you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you for your passionate and inspiring talk. I felt very connected to it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sharon. You always talk from the heart, and you are chiropractic's biggest love.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I get to do this. I sometimes I really still pinch myself that I mean, thank God so healthy, and I just get up and I go make the donuts, so to speak. You know, I really I really do. And you know, I work real simple practice. My daughter runs it. I'm the only doctor. Sometimes I'll take some of the peak students, you know, but I'll even like take out the garbage, you know. And sometimes she'll do a screening or something on a Saturday. I love working Saturday. It's my busiest day of the week. I only work till 1:00. And I've learned after 40 years in practice, I've learned how to take a credit card. I never even told her anything. I never went behind the front desk. You know?
You're ahead of me.
You know, Sharon, I started before saying about how,
I'm just so happy to have a job. I'm so happy I can do it.
well,
It's such
you know,
yeah.
I started saying before about some of the greats and the things, and one of the things that you said, and some of the guys on the call, because they sit with me at the beginnings, know how much of an impact it was. You had a quote one time that really changed the way I communicated with patients. People leave for two reasons. You didn't love them enough, or you didn't give them enough reasons to love you.
Hmm.
And I thought that was pure gold.
Huge.
So I wanted to say thank you for that, because it changed everything about how I deal with these in my office.
One of my, it reminds me of one of the things my uncle taught me, which was that one of three things is going to happen with a patient when they come in for a while. They're either going to feel better, they're going to feel worse, or they're going to feel the same. And if that's what you're relying on in any case, their care will end. If they feel better, it'll end because that's what they expected. If they feel worse, they're going to go look for someone else to help them feel better. They feel the same thing. So it's really what makes us unique is and they used to call it the chiropractic story, but it is the chiropractic story. That's what keeps them coming. Not necessarily, I mean, manual therapists do chiropractic, do manipulation. I mean, people, it's what we do that's so unique. And I talk to students a lot, as you know, I still do. And I quarterly have a meeting, and it's the philosophy that we're going to live or die by. Because now, physical therapists is different than when we got out of school. I mean, they're doctors now. And there's he just recently moved, but until recently, there was a physical therapist. I'm on one end of a strip mall, he was on the other, and if you went to his website, I swear to God, you'd think he was a chiropractor. Except he used manual traction, manual therapy, but he was moving bones. Maybe to mobilize joints, but he was moving bones. Maybe only if they were symptomatic, but that's what a lot of chiropractors have turned chiropractic into, which is not my problem. And I spend almost zero time worrying about what everyone else does, but I've got to look at what I do and what is my message. Because if I don't do something better than everybody else, then I can't compete. Nobody can compete with the chiropractic. Nobody. I remember years ago when Ian Grosson was doing an interview, was getting, debated. There's nobody that knows nobody that knows, and Reggie too. Nobody knows chiropractic like we do. Nobody knows the principle like we do. You stand tall in teaching people this. Don't back down. You know that if somebody is subluxated, that they're better off not being subluxated. I'll go to my grave knowing that. But and here's one of my other favorite ones. I open it again. Here it is. After I adjust somebody, I tell them that they're going to put this on my gravestone. It moves around before it leaves.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions?
But next week it's all gonna be gone. It just moves around before it leaves. Because I'm not treating your symptom. It's like you slam the door in your finger and I took the door off. Your finger ain't gonna feel great. Your finger's gonna feel. So I don't treat your symptoms. I'm gonna remove all your subluxations, whether you complained about them yet or not.
Hey Sharon, I got a question for you, because I know a lot of people on the call haven't heard it. You said you were in practice 42 years. When did you start school? Like 6 years old? How did you get involved in chiropractic?
My uncle, and I kind of have a long story, but I got my first adjustment in a hospital when I was 10. Basically, I had encephalitis. I had a high fever, and my uncle became a chiropractor at Columbia or whatever, and he can move bones, but he never adjusted me or my brother because we didn't have any pain. When I was 10 years old, I got real sick. I was in the hospital. Long story. And while I was in the hospital, he went to his first DE. And he came back from DE, and he came to the hospital and he told my mother that she should take me out of the hospital because he could help me with chiropractic. And my mother said, I can't take her out of the hospital. They told me she's going to die. And I'm like, hey. And he said, oh, I'm not going to, this is that hate that, well, I'm not going to adjust her in the hospital because if I do, she's going to get well and they're going to think it's what they've been doing for the last 2 weeks, the spinal taps and all the drugs. And my mother said, I'm not taking her to the hospital. So my uncle left and came back in the middle of the night and snuck in and gave me my first chiropractic adjustment. Me and him were the only two people in the room. And 24 hours later, I was home. And so I just knew I was going to be a chiropractor. So my brother, who was 4 years older than me, went down to life. And I went to visit him at 17. And basically, I was supposed to go to Drew University. I was accepted, ready to go. Basically never came, at 22, I graduated, came back up, and I worked for Sigafus. That was good. That was very good.
Wow. I knew there had to be some deep roots there.
Yeah. So I'm 64, and I'm coming on to my 43rd year.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how glad we were on tonight. This was really amazing. I'm sure, as Brian said, he got notes. I got to see what AI brought up for me. I know Leo's been scribbling. I saw his hand moving there. So thank you very much.
I feel better. It's like when you go to do your orientations, I do orientations too. And a lot of times I'm like, I'm hungry. I wish I can go home. There's only 2 people or whatever. And then at the end, you're like, whoa, you're like, bring on some more people. I got to go home and adjust my dog. I'm like on fire. I can't sleep at night because the orientation is my affirmation of who I am and why I do what I do. And talking to you tonight has been that same gift. Like I was tired after chasing those 4 boys all weekend and then going in and adjusting people all day. And now I probably won't fall asleep to halfway through the night. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is my last night out in Montana visiting my daughter. And as Johnny wrote in the email, I can't think of a better way to spend 30 minutes after a record snowstorm. And I got no snow out here, but there's plenty of Pennsylvania waiting for me when I get home. So
we got walloped.
Yeah, we did. Sharon, you say you're so lucky. I think we're so lucky to have you. Thank you so much. Every time I hear you inspire me. And tonight I love that you referred to the tire alignment. I'm like, that's part of my report of findings. I'm doing something right if Sharon talks about it too.
Love you,
All
Sharon.
right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good night. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Night.
Can't wait.
Good.
Yeah.